Good afternoon, Saitlanders. How are you? We hope that you are very, very well. Excuse me. Do you remember me making, I don't know if the video was ever published, and I think it may have been two videos. A video on how the Chinese Premier, Xi Jinping, told military academy graduates at a passing out parade 3 years ago, "You shall fight in a war. Be prepared for that." He was very direct and explicit about it. And there was a similar event. My memory fails to serve me, where he explicitly spoke about the probability or certainty of a war involving China. Okay. And we know that the Chinese have upgraded their military capacity or capability very much in recent years. Okay. At the recent Chinese Communist Party conference held a couple of days ago, there was an incident in which the former premier, Hu Jintao, was unceremoniously removed from the Great Hall. I think it's called the Great Hall of the People, but I could be mistaken. And Hu Jintao was his, he preceded Xi Jinping as the General Secretary of the Communist Party and President of the People's Republic. So he was the former number one guy. And he was in office for a long time, about I want to say a decade. Anyway, for the succeeding decade, the bigwig has been Xi Jinping, with whom we're all familiar, the face, quite distinctive and recognizable. And the two of them were seated. You can look this up on YouTube very easily. You can decide for yourself. They were seated at a long table, a sort of a high table in front of the audience. And Xi Jinping, the current bigwig, was seated in the premier position, and the guy who preceded him was seated immediately to his left. And at some point in the proceedings, along comes a guy, and he grabs the elderly man gently under the left arm. So he comes from that side, and he says something to him. Nobody knows what. We haven't yet had a lip reader, and I say this quite sincerely, we haven't yet had a lip reader come out and tell us, oh yes, in Mandarin Chinese he was saying X, Y, and Z. But he was saying something, and it appeared as if maybe Hu Jintao, the old guy, he didn't fully agree. This is in the middle of the proceedings. To cut a long story short, and we'll go back and fill in some detail in a minute, but many observers on the internet who tend to be even-handed, fair-minded, and balanced about events in Ukraine. In other words, people who, like I have done, have said, well, the invasion is justified because of the Yanukovych story going back to 2004, And then Putin's speech at the Munich Security Conference, I urge everybody to watch it, in 2007. And then Yanukovych again in 2010, and then Yanukovych in 2013 and 14, and then the Donbass in 2014. And then the Donbass separately to those other events, the Donbass, the conflict, the Donbass appealing to Vladimir Putin, please let us accede to Russia. So there are those of us who've said in many big interviews, and I'll give another one on Sunday, at 4 p.m., not 3 p.m., 4 p.m., because British daylight savings time has changed, or will change, at 2 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. So by the time I do my interview, it will have changed. So my interview will now be at 4 o'clock, not as it has always been over the past, well, has been over the past 6 months of daylight savings time, at 3 o'clock. No, at 4 o'clock. I will give another interview on World Broadcasting Network, WBN 324. You can search against that term. The Sunday show, Sunday long live radio. It's the Saitlanders Hour, and it is one of the 4 or 5 biggest radio format shows on the internet. There are various criteria. So we're not competing with, let's say, satellite television or BBC terrestrial radio service. But radio by internet, one of the 4 or 5 biggest hours in the world. Every second Sunday, every fortnight in and fortnight out. Who have said, people like me, saying, there's much more to this story than people acknowledge. But these guys have revealed themselves actually not to be even-handed and fair-minded, but one-eyed. Many of them. It turns out, and it's such a disappointment, that they possessed all along a Russia bias. They were telling the truth not for the sake of the truth, but for the sake of Russia. And that is not Saitlander's agenda. Why do I say that? Because they're saying Hu Jintao clearly was ill. The allegation, the suggestion that he was being unceremoniously dragged out of the main conference of Russia's biggest buddy is false. He had soybrand. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. And this is what it is to be a Saitlander. To see the truth for what it is, when it is in your favor and when it is not in your favor. This is the time in which we are living, my friends. We are entering one of the most difficult epochs of the history of mankind. Even though you and I are not yet fully feeling its effects. Now we must tell the truth like never before. And the reality is that if you watch that video, that man wasn't ill. Anybody who knows elderly people, and we all do, know that when they're ill, mostly, not all of them, feel sorry for themselves. They don't attempt to be stoic. They don't stick it out. They don't tough it out, because they have reached an age of frailty and vulnerability, and they eventually come to terms with it. When you say hospital, they say yes. And they start to obsess about being close to medical treatment. That elderly gentleman, if he had been ill, would have been only too keen to stand up and doubtless, if it was the case, they would have shown a video to the effect. You know, they would have shown the preceding portion of the video, the one in which he says, oh goodness, my stomach, oh. Because there must have been a sign, a piece of evidence, a clue that led this orderly, if that's the right word, to come from the wings onto the dais, onto the podium, up to this table where all these bigwigs are seated, and offer this help. They would have shown us that. The poor man's ill. He just needed a glass of water. But there had to be an indication. Why did this guy come? He came for a reason. If it was for reasons of health, they would have shown us. And, as I say, Hu Jintao would have reacted in a positive manner. He would have said, oh, yeah, thank you, my son. Thank you for helping me. Oh, golly gee, it's not easy being 78 or whatever. As elderly people do when they get to that stage of frailty. Most elderly people. Thirdly, when he was eventually, I would say, persuaded, now's your time to leave, buddy. Your time is over. He wouldn't have been so solicitous. I don't want to be crass, but the easiest way that I can illustrate this is, no, there's a better illustration. In British English, a solicitor is a lawyer who's allowed to advertise for business. An advocate or Queen's Counsel is not allowed to advertise. He's not meant to, and it was the law in South Africa up until the rainbow perfection of sainthood. Wasn't allowed to advertise because they were meant to be people of such imperative professional elevation. So, and they weren't just professionals in the sense of, I don't know, but they were, these people, they fought to keep people out of jail. You're an advocate. You argue in front of the judge to save a man from being hanged, to save him from years of jail, to save his family from not having a father. One of the highest professions. Not allowed to, excuse my language, excuse me, you're not allowed to prostitute yourself. You must be above that. Handing out business cards, putting up advertisements, selling yourself that way. That's beneath an advocate. So solicitous is where you appeal to somebody like a solicitor. Hey, give me your business, give me your business. Look at my advertisement, SABC3, between the 8 o'clock news and the weather report. Hey, look here, look what product we've got. It was traditionally considered in Western Christendom a necessity, but a nasty necessity of doing business. Lying about your product. You're soliciting. You've got to. You're Ed Blow mattresses or Coca-Cola. All right, you have to, but there are more noble ways to conduct yourself in life. That was how our people thought. And doctors and advocates and others were therefore forbidden to advertise their services. And similarly, he demeaned himself. Hu Jintao demeaned himself when he, and I'm not saying I wouldn't have done it in such a desperate moment, but still, you're abandoning some of your, it's less than noble. You're abandoning some of your honor. By saying, hey, my friend, hey, friendy. And he was doing that. He was trying to grab onto Xi Jinping as he was being led away in a manner which seemed suggestive that he was soliciting him, that he was appealing to him. Are we still friends? Can I see you later? Will you still take my call? And Xi Jinping, who through all of that had kind of been a bit aloof, Yeah, he's the bigwig of the world's largest economy, or soon to be largest economy. Not the largest, but nearly the largest population in the world. You have to conduct yourself that way, or the jackals will rip you to pieces. You have to be aloof. You have to be haughty. You have to be supercilious. You have to be hoogmoedig, or you will get ripped to shreds by the dogs. Nevertheless, even an emperor, as it were, in such a position, may turn, if his friend is genuinely ill, and say, "Hey, buddy, you alright? You want some of my water? Your water's not good. You what? Hey, come here. And then you may revert to conducting yourself with decorum. Sitting with your hands on the table, looking straight forward, and being above the matters of mere mortal men. But what you wouldn't do if your best buddy in communism, in Bolshevism, was suffering a heart attack, or an anxiety attack, or angina, or severe soybrand, whose symptoms would display like angina, or you know what I mean? Maybe heart attack. Blood pressure drop. Oh! But Xi Jinping didn't do that. He kind of ignored the matter. And when eventually, by now there was a second orderly, if that's the correct word, assisting the first guy to whip out old Hu Jintao behind. So from the left, I know you're seeing it the other way. In fact, you're seeing it the right way, because the camera was like that. Of course, it was mirrored. So when I do it, it works as you would have seen, as you shall see it in the video. They've now got him shuffling behind Xi Jinping, and he, hey, Xi, are we still friends? Can I still come and play? I like you, don't you like me? It was pathetic, in the true sense of the word. Pathos was abjectly sentimental. There was no dignity, no honor, no pride. And as he left, he tried to appeal again to somebody else. And he was walking sideways. When you're an elderly, ill person being taken to hospital, there are two things that are pertinent to the description I've just given you. The first is, you're self-absorbed. Besides what I described earlier about the elderly and illness and health and frailty and vulnerability, and they become self-absorbed. There's nothing wrong with that. Reaching the ends of their lives, they must, it's all about me now. I want another couple of years, Lord. Of course. You don't spot you later, check you 3 o'clock. Well, no, you focus on yourself. Ambulance, no, please don't call an ambulance. All right then, okay. Which hospital are we going to? Doctor, oh yes, I'm so glad. He's always been good for me. You say he'll be there when we get there. The conduct was completely out of keeping with the scenario of a man who's ill, as these other people on the internet, whom I have hitherto respected, are insisting. They're talking nonsense. It's false, and it's going to turn out to be false, mark my words. The second thing, I said there were two things, is he was walking sideways as he was being pulled, and he's trying to talk to Xi Jinping, pat him on the shoulder and talk to the other guy. Nobody who's on a mission to a place with focus on that thing walks like this. The person who walks like this is the person who doesn't want to be taken away. He's reluctant. So, what is the real point of this long video? The real point is that Hu Jintao has a reputation for being anti-Taiwan war and for being pro-rapprochement. Rapprochement is like, there's a good word in Afrikaans and I can't for the life of me think what it is, but reconciliation or conciliation. Making friends again. Getting onto good terms again. Or for the first time, for that matter, with the West. And I put it to you that Xi Jinping made an example of that guy, so that the entire Chinese Communist Party's Congress, I believe it's like only every 10 years, might be 5 years. The first one was in the early 1900s. But this is a very prestigious thing. The Great Hall of the People, maybe 4,000 delegates. He's showing everybody, the whole lot of you, great and small, those of you who are in the 4, 5, or 6 uppermost echelons of the hierarchy of the somebody's going to accuse me of making some symbol. I mean, honestly, how else you do a pyramid? How else you show hierarchy? It's a word with meaning, thank you. An echelon with your hands, I don't know. But I just, because I get these things every day saying, oh, did you see how that guy was standing? He was making the sign, the secret sign. The uppermost of the Chinese Communist Party, know this and know it well. Now we go to war. And anybody who so much as suggests that the path that I have chosen should not be adhered fully, regardless of who they are, including the former Main Mackie. Time will tell who is right and who is wrong, but I strongly suspect that we would do well to recognize that these oaks are starting to play for keeps. May that be a lesson for us over the next 6, 9, 12, 15 months. And I put it to you, ladies and gentlemen, that it is going to become not indirectly, but directly relevant to us. That's a somewhat cryptic thing to say. I'm sure that we'll have the opportunity in days, weeks, and months to come to explicate it a little bit more. But let's not get carried away. Thank you very much for watching this video. May our Lord bless and keep you in the times that lie ahead of us. Thank you, and bye-bye.